We're back on the program with Flame of Truth. I'm Dan Smith from the La Sierra University Church here in Riverside, and just wanted to welcome you again to our show. We're in a series on mountaintop living. What does it mean to live on top of a mountain and have some moments that just light your life up with a special glow and glory? So we've been looking at some of the mountains. We've looked at Mount of Transfiguration in Matthew 17 last time. And now today we're going to look at Noah and Mount Ararat. I've been in Africa a couple times now, and as we're taping this, I just got back a week ago from Salusa University in Zimbabwe, where we have a university. We're trying to help build up their farm and their computer system, and I've preached there. What a wonderful place. Why does anyone go to Africa? Get on a plane, 25 hours in planes all the way. It took me 45 hours of travel time going each direction. It's a long ways. Why do people go? Why did David Livingstone go? When I went to Victoria Falls, here was a statue there. Why did Albert Schweitzer give his life to Africa? Why don't we just leave them with their own religion? My parents went to be missionaries in Thailand. You know, why do we send all this money? People give their lives, sacrificing to go around the world. They already have their beliefs. Who are we to think that what we have is somehow better than what they already have? Who gives anybody the right to do that? How would we like it if someone came over to us and tried to convince us to come over to their religion? Just leave everybody alone. You maybe have heard about the story, a year ago somewhere, people were climbing Mount Everest. One man, I think, and his partner or his wife, were struggling. I don't know if they were on the way up or on the way back down from the top, but they were struggling and ended up dying. And they said someone somehow counted that there were 40 different climbers that walked by. Obviously someone in distress, not going to make it, and they walked by. There's a mountain ethic that just says, you know, they made their choice, everyone's on his own, you're that close to the top, you got to go. And we instinctively say, no, they should have stopped. Just be able to say that I climbed the top of Mount Everest is not worth passing by another human being who's going to die if you don't stop to help. And as soon as you say that, we are assuming that one particular view is better than another. And we're creating a hierarchy of ethics and values and beliefs. Who has the right to do that? I'm a pastor on a campus, and there was a rumor that someone said to me one time here a while ago that one of our best professors had somewhere said in a meeting or in a committee somewhere that they thought that we should come to the place on our campus we should have no requirements, no specific rules morally. Just educate people. We're a university. We don't have any right to come tell people how to live, or they have to be at so many chapels or eat a certain way or anything else. You couldn't sleep together. You couldn't drink. That's private. We are just a university. And I said, I cannot believe that this person said that. And so I went to this person. I said, here's what you're being quoted. Did you say this? That somehow rules don't matter? We're a university. You should be free to do whatever you want? And he said, absolutely not. That's the opposite of what I believe. And I said, then you need to come back to whoever is passing this on and clear this up. Does it matter what you believe and what you claim to be truth? Well, we're here on the story in Genesis 6, 7, 8, 9, the story of Mount Ararat and Noah. You can just imagine being in this flood. 18 months you're in a boat, and finally it comes to the end. I've read the book, seen some of the movie, Perfect Storm. Just an incredible, dramatic movie with all the water and the wind and the turbulence and helicopters, people dropping into the water to save these people. You can imagine the storm that Noah and his family have lived through. And finally, they are not going crazy anymore, and their boat bumps on to land, Mount Ararat. And now the boat is not rocking and fighting the storm anymore, and it's calm. And there comes a time when they walk out and they are on solid ground again. And that's the question I want to ask you today. Is there any solid ground in the world of religion? Or is everybody on the boat still, being tossed around with all the ideas. Who knows whose ideas are true or not? This religion, that denomination, or that particular belief. Can everyone just believe whatever they want? Or is there some solid ground someplace that you can rely on? I had one of my associate pastors speaks for college audiences a lot. Was back east, I think, somewhere, and he asked how many were praying for Jesus to come. Half, maybe. How many of you are praying for Jesus not to come too soon because you want to grow up, you want to get married, you want to make love, you want to travel, make money, and all the rest? More hands went up. And so he said, there's more of you than more of them. And maybe the reason Jesus isn't coming is because you all are praying and your prayers are more powerful than these people's prayers. Does it matter what you believe? Does it matter what you pray? Does what you believe have any consequence at all? Difficult subject. But we believe this, that people have a desire to make love, that group of young people, because there is such a thing as making love. If you are hungry for food, it is because there is such a thing as food. If you're hungry for water, it is because there is such a thing as water. And you're hungry to make love because there is such a thing as making love. Most of us have an innate desire down in our soul for heaven, for God, forever, for life. God has placed eternity in the hearts of men, Ecclesiastes 3. Wouldn't it also follow? There is such a thing. There is solid ground. There is real. There is a God. There is a heaven. There is a resurrection. There was a virgin birth. The Bible is true. And there is solid ground and there is raw truth. My youth pastor has said that there's a trend now in the young people's world, that the pendulum is swinging away from anything goes. Whatever you want to believe is up to you. You make your own truth. You decide what you want to believe. No, there are young people who want to know raw truth. What is at the core? What is at the basic? What are the basic principles that you can know for sure? They don't want any ambiguity or any uncertainty. We want to know this is the way it is. Tell us what's truth. There's some solid ground out here in the world. Give us some solid ground. We don't want to be on Noah's Ark anymore, just going through the storm. And a lot of the things that most of us are looking for are right here in this story of Genesis chapter 6, 7, 8, and 9. It's clear in the Bible that everybody has sinned. Genesis 6, 5, the Lord saw how great man's wickedness had become, and that every inclination of the thoughts of his heart was only evil all the time. Evidently, there is a right and wrong. There are standards, and it does make a difference what you believe. It is not just up to every person to decide their own standards. And so a couple of people called me the other day, and they wanted to know what I thought about what they were doing, and I said, I will love you either way. This will not affect our relationship, but let me tell you, what you're doing is wrong. They wanted truth. They wanted raw truth. They wanted that there was a standard, that there's a benchmark to go by. Number two, there's going to be a judgment. There's going to be another flood. There was a flood then. There's going to be a flood again. There are consequences. This is part of our raw truth, because at the end there's only going to be two groups. One group inside the boat, safe. Another group outside the boat and lost. There's going to be a judgment. Take it seriously. One group will be all dead. One group will be alive. Number three, grace. It says in Genesis 6, verse 8, Noah found grace in the eyes of the Lord. There was only one way out. There were not all kinds of ways to survive this flood. There was one way. The boat that God had helped them prepare. And so the Bible says there's only one name under heaven by which men may be saved. I am the way, the truth, and the life. In Ephesians 4, there is one hope, one Lord, one faith, one baptism, one God. Number 4, it's all God. You can see a boat on top of a mountain. You may not know how that boat got there or when it got there, but you know this, that boat did not get there by itself. We did not get here by an accident. It is God. Everything is always God. I went to high school and then college at a college called Pacific Union College. I was there a while ago, and here's this bell tower. It was new when I was in college. Now it's been there a long time. When I was in college, we came out one morning, and someone had put a wreath up at the top of that bell tower. I don't know how high it was, 70, 80, 100 feet. We could not figure out how they got that wreath up there. Too far to just throw it like a frisbee from the church that was close by. There were no wires. There was no trees. How could they get it up there? I think it was probably some rock climbers who had some rock climbing equipment, and they got it up there. But our administrators of the university could not figure out, and as far as I know, they still don't know who put it up there. But we knew this: it didn't get up there by itself. And we know that that boat of Mount Noah's Ark did not get top of that mountain by itself. We did not get here by ourselves. There is a God. When they got up there, when they came out of the boat, they made an altar, the Bible says. Noah built an altar to the Lord. How many altars did Noah build? One. You could hear Noah saying, hey, I worked on this boat for 120 years. God didn't come down here and saw. I saw it. I hammered. I put this boat together, my sons and I. I think I'm going to have an altar for me too. No, there was no altar. There's only one altar to God. It's important to live a godly life. It is important to keep the 10 Commandments. It is important, all those things. But ultimately in your life and when we get to heaven, there's only going to be one altar to God. It's going to be all by grace. That is the only thing. What Noah did was nothing compared to what God did. God always wants us to do something in our spiritual life, but it is trivial and of no consequence compared to what God has done in Jesus Christ on the cross on another mountain. And here's the problem with that. When you and I climb a mountain, and we have been the ones to hike up the mountain. I climbed Mount Whitney when I was 19 years old. I took my family up a few months ago, up to the base, up to what they call Whitney Portal. We walked up 100 yards. They were already tired. I walked to the top. 11 miles each way, all in one day. And when you get up there, you sign your name in a book, and you wear a patch, and you feel, I climbed Mount Whitney. And that's the great challenge when you get to the top of a Mount Ararat, to begin to think, I did something. When you get to heaven, I did something. I was good. I went to church. I kept the Sabbath. I gave offerings. I was better than the other people. I lived by the rules. I played the game the way it was supposed to be played. And somehow to realize that you're at top of the mountain, and yes, you did some things, but there's only one altar, and it is all God. We give glory to God. And so in this Bible, there are two stories. Genesis 6-9 is Mount Ararat and the altar. Genesis 10-11, there's Tower of Babel. Two ways. One group is having an altar to God, trusts and gives God all the glory and the credit. The other says, we're going to find a way so that God can't mess with us anymore. We're going to take care of things all by ourselves. We will climb all the way to heaven. And so we have a set of beliefs that we believe are called raw truth. Things you believe, but you're not sure. There are other things that you believe are sure. There are some Mount Ararat things that you just say, okay, I know this. I went out to dinner the other day with some of our theologians and scientists trying to have a common understanding. There are some questions we just do not know. I can't answer the ice cores and all the layers. I can't answer all the radiometric dating and how come these ages are so many millions of years in the ages of the rocks and the fossils. I cannot explain all of that. But we agreed there's some things we know for sure. There is a God. There is a Creator. We are not here by accident. We are the product of a God, of a mind and a heart who wanted to be with us, who created us in His image so He could have someone to relate to us. There is accountability. There's another life that is coming someday. There are some things we know for sure, while we have some things we may debate about still. There are some solid ground. There are some raw truth. There are some Mount Ararat things that you have to know. And so I have to ask you today, what are your Mount Ararat beliefs? What is raw truth that you know for sure? The Bible. I was where they found all the Mount Sinaiticus at St. Catherine's Monastery a few weeks ago at Mount Sinai. 1,500 men wrote the Bible over 1,500 years. 40 men. And it all comes out the same. Coherent, cohesive, logical, changes your life. Jesus on the cross. Jesus came down and He died, and 12 men died martyrs' deaths because they said He's alive. What are the odds that these 12 men would be willing to die for something they knew to be lie, to be false, to be a conspiracy? So I believe in the Bible. I believe in Jesus. I believe in the story of heaven. As we said, C.S. Lewis said, why would there be such a thing as a desire for heaven and a future if there was no such thing? And it was not possible. And so there comes a time when you have to say, I know some things. When I was in high school at Singapore, I used to go out flying with my roommate, 16 years old. And he was taking flying lessons at Singapore. And so the day I went riding with him, he was going to learn touch and go, his landing. So he would take off fine, and they would circle around, and then the instructor would coach him how to land. And then we would be too high, and he would have to say, let me have it. And he would find a way to help us land. It would take off again, around, touch and goes. Sometimes we would come in too low and bounce on the ground and hit high. Other times we would never quite get down to the ground. And he would say, let me take it. After all this banging and bouncing, I finally said, just let me out. And they let me out, and I got onto solid ground again. Oh, I have no idea how good solid ground felt. Do you have solid ground? Where do you go when you need some solid ground? Is it always God when you go to for solid ground, or do you go for money? I feel better when I have some money. Or do you feel when I have my family around? My family is my solid ground. Or your job, or your house. What is it that gives you solid ground? Or is it God and truth that you have hammered out? That is your solid ground. My next question is, who are the Mount Ararats in your life? Those people that when you're in the storm, you know to go and to say, I need a Mount Ararat. I need some solid ground. And of course, the parallel question is, who are you the Mount Ararat for? Are there people that can come to you when they're shaking and they're in a storm, and they can come to you and just say, I need a solid rock. I need some Mount Ararats in my life. Anyway, we got to go on to some other areas in this passage, a covenant. Genesis 9 verse 8 says, Then God said to Noah and to his sons, I now establish my covenant with you, and with your descendants after you, and with every living creature that was with you. Never again will the waters become a flood to destroy all life. There are different kinds of covenants. There are these royal covenants where I will do this for you, but you have to do this for me. And there's like if-then covenants. I will be your God, and I will provide an army, and I'll do, but you have to obey and keep the rules if you want to be in my country. There are other covenants. We might call them more unilateral or universal covenants. I'm just going to do this. There's no if. That's the way I'm going to be. What is your picture of God? I went to a conference the other day, not far away. A group of young people wanted to have a conference about God. And the cover picture of all their programs and the backdrop of all their speaking was a picture of some of the world leaders with all the flags behind it. And here was Jesus, and he was washing the feet of Osama bin Laden. It bothered some people. You can't have President Bush and all the other government world leaders and then have bin Laden in there. And here's Jesus humbly washing. No, that's too far, that's too much. No, that's what it means to be unilateral and universal. That God makes a covenant with everybody. Our church has a motto that says, grace, everyone, everywhere, every time. What is your picture of God? What is your covenant? Is God a royal covenant, an if-then covenant, or is he a universal, unilateral covenant? And then, of course, we have to ask, are there people in your life that you are unilateral with? Are there some people in your life where you say, absolutely, I'm going to love you, and I'm going to stay with you. It doesn't matter what you do. It doesn't matter what you are, what mistakes you make. I'm going to be here for you. I've had people tell me that in my life. Or are you an if-then kind of person? I'll love you and I'll be your friend, but only if you treat me fair and do what I want you to do. Or do you have some unilateral friends? Unilateral relationships. God is a unilateral, universal God. No matter what, I will never bring a storm or a flood upon you like this again. And there is my rainbow as a symbol. Well, we better keep moving. One of the hard questions about mountaintop living. You've all had mountaintop moments out under the stars, or you've been away for a vacation at the beach in Hawaii. Maybe you've been at a spiritual high. You had a week of prayer, or you had a baby born, and it just put you in another place with God. And then you come down from the mountaintop. And a few months later, the joy is gone. The glory is gone, and you're back to the routine, or maybe not even living a consistent godly life. Every January 1, you probably, I'll read the Bible through. I'm going to be in church every week. I'm going to pay a faithful tithe and offering. And then after a few months, you're not living the mountaintop life anymore. What does it mean to live an absolute congruent life? Remember what happened with Noah. He has the mountaintop. God has saved him. They built an altar. There's a rainbow. And he comes down the mountain and he gets drunk. And you say, what happened? What happened? You think of all the mountaintops in your life when your faith was solid, when God was close, and you knew you were forgiven, and you knew you were going to heaven. And then you began to lose it. And the message, I think, of the mountaintop living is to find a way to live congruent. That who you are on the mountaintop is also who you are in the valley. And that you are consistent. It doesn't matter where you are, between high or low, you will live a consistent life. You will live a life that is in the presence of God, where you know God. There is raw truth, that you are solid and you believe. Doesn't matter what is happening, these beliefs cannot be taken from you. You will live an absolute life. You will live out your commitments to Christ in every detail from one side to the other. There's not just mountaintops and then valley moments away. You are a mountaintop person day and night all the time. And also I want to encourage you to have more mountaintop moments. What are you doing to have mountaintops in your life? You cannot recipe this. You cannot plan it on your own. But you can plan to do certain things where you know it is more likely to have a mountaintop moment. You can go to the beach, or you can be in a small group, or you can go to worship, or you can go on a mission trip where you build a building, or you do something for people and you feel the glow and you say, I need some mountaintop moments. You can read certain books. You can listen to certain music. There are certain things you know are more likely to give you mountaintop moments where you get back on solid ground, where you get back your sense of who you are, and you recalibrate your life, and you get back to say, oh yeah, those are the central commitments in my life. You cannot always create magic moments where you feel the glow, but you can create moments where you are with God, and you get your life back on track and centered in your life, where you get your core beliefs. I had someone the other day come to me and said, Dan, I went through a terrible car accident, and now, he says, I have figured out some things. I'm not going to be all over the map anymore. I'm not going to be a Noah's Ark just floating around, always in a storm. I'm on solid ground. I'm going to be solid from now on. I had a cousin just went away for a week. She says, I just need to get back my center. She went and got a cabin and got a week on the coast of Oregon. She said, I just need to get back. Bill Hybels of Willow Creek, after years of preaching every week, Wednesday night and Sunday, every week, for years, finally has had to have a time away where you get back on your mountain. He has a little cabin on the coast of Lake Michigan where he can get back his center and restore himself and get his batteries recharged, so that when he comes back into the pulpit at Willow Creek, he can preach God and powerful messages for 9 months. Where are your mountaintop moments? Have you planned them? Well, say a couple more things. Top of Mount Ararat is a sign of the end time, Mount Zion. And so we know what Jesus said in Matthew 24, verse 37, as it was in the days of Noah, so will it be at the coming of the Son of Man. Mount Ararat's an obvious parallel to the second coming. They have come through the storm. As Christ is the ark who brings us back to solid land, we will finally land in heaven. Because of Christ, we will have one altar. There will be the rainbow as a sign of God's promise to us. And there will be a remnant. As Noah and his family were a remnant, there will be a remnant who are standing on the sea of glass. No more storm, standing there to worship God with God's name on their forehead, worshiping God, singing the song of the Lamb. And there's only one way. I am the way, the truth, and the Lamb, the life. With all the people, all of you parents who are watching today, there's only one ultimate goal that matters, that someday you will have your family like Noah had his family there. It doesn't matter what else you have done, if you were rich or poor, where you've been around the world, what battles you went through. It is this one goal, is to look around you when you come off the ark, off the cloud into heaven, and there you are, and there is your family. My father's buried now, and one of these days, I hope there'll be a resurrection morning, and we will walk on the cloud together, and I want my wife, my son, they should marry and have children someday. All my brothers, all of their kids, the whole family, all the generations. Back to the first one who bought a book 100 years ago, my great-grandfather Venden. I've preached that also in Flame of Truth. We want every one of the family to be there. Nothing else matters. I sometimes do worry about people with pendulums. And maybe they grew up too legalistic and off on one side, and now they've reacted and they react, and they come back, but they pass by center, and they go to another extreme where anything goes, doesn't matter. They have no raw truth. They have no standards. They're not living congruent lives. And I say, don't do anything that will risk not having your family together when you get on the other side. When you get there on top of Mount Zion, on the other side of the flood. Jesus has done everything he can do to get you there. But you and your family have to get on the ark. You and your family have to walk through that door and leave that world behind outside and say, our family, this is what we're going to do. We're going to the other side. Nothing else matters. The research is pretty clear. People come through Sabbath school, Pathfinders, parents send them to church school, then they go through high school, and then there begins to be, some begin to leave and check out. Some find their way back. All that matters is to lay down such a wonderful picture of God, of Jesus and grace, to be models for what it means to live a godly life, and to pass on the faith to the next generation so that your family is there, Mount Zion. Don't let anything keep you away from that priority. Nothing else matters. Nothing else matters. Finally, what's the last point here? You can't get to the mountain if you don't get on the boat. Noah and his family could not get to the other side and go through the storm and land on Mount Ararat and have solid ground and live out the rest of their lives again if they didn't get on the boat. You got to get on the boat. You have to get on, your family, your kids, get on the boat. Nothing else matters. Martin Luther King was in Memphis and having the big strike with the sanitation workers. I read the whole speech again. But then he said at the end of the sermon, he said, I have been to the mountaintop and I've seen the promised land. I hope that you've been to the mountaintop, you've seen the promised land. Be there.